So today I want to do something a little different, something new. I don't have a project to show you, to walk you through. I don't have a technique to demo or a tool to show off or review or any of that. Today I have a question that I'm genuinely interested in what your opinions on this are. Just because I kind of want to see if there is a general consensus or if this is just all over the place. The question is, what does DIY mean? What types of projects would you consider to be DIY, and what sort of a tool set would you consider to be a DIY tool set? The reason I ask this, several months ago I made a video about a loft bed that I built for my daughter. It was what I consider to be fairly simple, so I labeled it as a simple DIY loft bed. Pretty basic. And I labeled it that way because, in my opinion, that's really what it is. It's very simple, and I would consider it a DIY project. But before I get into what I consider to be DIY, I want to just quickly go over what brought this question up. So that particular video is actually the most viewed video I have on my channel. It beats out every video over the last 9 years or however long it's been since I started this channel. And not by a little bit, by several thousand views. I don't think that's because it was a particularly great video or project. Honestly, I think it's just because it had DIY in the title. My theory is that having DIY in the title improves your search results on YouTube. Not positive, but it seems to be the case, and at least with this video. With that project, I think that's also the project I've had the most comments on, which, as it's the most viewed, that makes sense. But the comments that kind of brought this question on for me, I've had several that are something along the lines of, this isn't simple, this isn't DIY, this is complicated. Some of them go so far as, this isn't simple at all, this would take a really seasoned, experienced carpenter to build this. And so it just makes me wonder, what do people consider DIY? Does it have to be made out of pallets you pulled out of a dumpster? Does it have to be a repurposed dresser or something? I don't know. That's where the question comes from. Because based on a lot of those comments, it made me think that the only thing people consider to be DIY is crap they can knock together with finishing nails that's going to fall apart, that is just an extra crappy version of something you would get at IKEA, something they sort of saw on Pinterest and just knocked it together in 20 minutes and it looks like crap. Maybe that's what some people consider to be DIY. I don't think that's a fair definition. At its most basic, DIY is, do it yourself. It's something that a person could do either on their own or with minimal assistance, mostly with a pretty basic set of tools. And that's what that project was. It was all construction lumber from Home Depot. It's all held together with screws, dowels, glue, and bolts. Nothing fancy. No crazy finishing techniques. It's just painted with paint that I picked up at Sherwin-Williams. Nothing fancy. As far as the tools go, you could build that whole thing with a circular saw, a sander, a drill with a few different drill bits, and maybe a router. That's really about all you need to do it. And in the video, that's mostly what I used. I did use my miter saw, but you don't need it. You could do everything that I did with just a speed square and a miter saw, as far as all of the cuts go. And even the sander, I guess you could say, is optional. You could hand sand that whole thing. It would take forever because it was really big, but it's totally doable. And that brings me to another thing. Does DIY mean it has to fit within certain time constraints? Like, if I can't knock it out in half an hour, does that mean it's not DIY? I don't think so. Just because something is a little more involved, if it's still basic techniques and basic tools, I think that still counts as DIY. Nothing in that particular project was difficult. Anyway, that's my opinion. To me, that is totally DIY. I think anybody with a basic set of tools and patience could have done that project. So I stand by calling it simple and DIY. But I'd really be curious to know, what do you guys think is DIY? What types of things fall into that category? What types of things do not fall into that category? But if you have an opinion on this, I'd really appreciate your feedback, because I just want to see what other people think. What constitutes a DIY project, and the tools that, if you're going to label a project as DIY, what types of tools could you reasonably expect somebody to have? As always, thanks for watching. If you want to see more of the stuff that I do in my shop, please subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Thanks. is so good. I love water. I think that'll do it. Let's go edit this, son.